The Satsuma Rebellion. End of a way of life. Japan is an archipelago consisting of 4 main islands: Honshu, Hokkaido, Kyushu, and Shikoku. Its mesmerizing landscape and amazing metropolitan sites are marvelous attractions for residents and tourists alike. Today, Japan is a unified nation with a large economy and top-of-the-line technology. But Japan was not always united. During Rome's mighty conquests to Europe's Middle Ages, even during the U.S. Civil War, Japan was an isolated country still implementing a feudal government. The samurai, the Japanese equivalent to the knight, were king in this time. The Mongol invasions of the 1200s failed in part due to the samurai's ferocity on the battlefield. While united against the Mongols, the samurai's masters, the daimyo, fought against one another for more land and resources after they had successfully expelled the Mongols from the country. Fighting raged on until daimyo Tokugawa Ieyasu's victory in 1603. He established the Tokugawa shogunate that ruled Japan, with his descendants leading it for nearly 300 years. During the shogunate's early years, Dutch traders came to the country wishing to open up relations. The Dutch were given a small trading post on the island of Dejima off the port of Nagasaki. While trade was open, these relations were kept under strict control due to fear of cultural impurification from the Dutch by the Japanese. During the shogunate's rule, several other European nations vied for trade rights with Japan, but all were turned down. It wasn't until 1853, when a fleet of warships led by U.S. Commodore Matthew Perry traveled to the country, that Japan's doors formally opened for good. At this time, a rush of European nations came to make alliances with the newly opened country. The ruling Japanese Emperor Meiji promoted these changes, and for good reason. Japan was lagging behind the rest of the world in technology. European nations had taken advantage of other Asian countries that were not able to defend themselves. This prompted Meiji to quickly industrialize and militarize in any way possible. For resources and trade agreements, Japan would receive new weaponry and economic machines. Meiji was not alone in his support for industrialization. The Satsuma samurai clan leader, Saigo Takamori, threw his entire support to the imperial court. His loyalty would soon be tested. The Tokugawa shogunate was increasingly becoming rebellious against the imperial court. After nearly 3 centuries of rule, the shogunate's power was diminishing. For the first time, the emperor was heavily involved in the politics of the nation. This made Yoshinobu and his court feel deprived of their original power. Tokugawa Yoshinobu and Emperor Meiji had no common ground during negotiations. Meiji proposed that he would assume all the powers of the emperor and the shogunate, with Yoshinobu and his court acting as only advisors. Yoshinobu refused, making a truce impossible. The prior relocation of the capital from traditional Kyoto to Tokyo did not aid the situation. This made the shogunate feel that the traditions of the country were changing, along with the politics. In 1868, fighting broke out between daimyo forces loyal to the shogunate and imperial troops. The key military advisor and trainer of the emperor's armies was Saigo Takamori. Although highly outnumbered, the imperial troops won with their newly acquired muskets, cannon, and armor. Tokugawa's forces retreated to Hokkaido, where they held up until Tokugawa Yoshinobu surrendered personally. Aside from a small sacking of Satsuma Palace, Saigo fought the war without any losses. However, while loyal to the emperor then, Saigo and his samurai would soon turn on Meiji. The samurai's main weapon, the katana, has spiritual meaning to them. The Haito Edict of 1876 restricted use of katana to military and police officers. This act is one of the main causes for the samurai's revolt. By the Haito Edict's implementation, Saigo had retired to his hometown of Satsuma. There, he had gathered a large following of peaceful samurai who followed him as their daimyo. The imperial court feared that Saigo might be gathering troops to fuel a rebellion. In January of 1877, the government sent a brigade to Satsuma to disarm the town. After this, and an attempt at Saigo's life, the samurai had had enough. In February of the same year, Saigo prepared for war and gathered a fighting force of 30,000 men. Saigo chose to attack the fortification of Kumamoto. This failed, and the samurai retreated. During their retreat back to Satsuma, the samurai clashed with imperial troops in a few skirmishes. In September, after several attempted negotiations, Saigo made his last stand at Satsuma. His army of withered down 370 samurai with few guns squared off against 300,000 troops with cannon and rifles. The attack began in the early morning of the 24th and reduced Saigo's forces to only 40 by 6 a.m. Saigo was pulled out of battle by about a dozen of his men after a serious head injury incapacitated him. They aided him in the ceremonial suicide, seppuku. The last of the samurai made one final charge, but were mowed down by Gatling guns. The new modernized country of Japan had no place for the old ways of the samurai. Those that remained had to make a compromise with themselves. They had to lay down their swords, give up their old ways of life and order, and become average citizens in Imperial Japan. Although the samurai died out, they are still remembered today. One can walk into any historical museum and see remnants of these warriors' ancient past. The samurai's legend has even made it into entertainment realms. Hit shows like Spike's Afro Samurai and Cartoon Network's Samurai Jack entertain large numbers of viewers. The samurai story has made it to the silver screen also. The 2003 movie The Last Samurai, starring Tom Cruise, brought the story of the Satsuma Rebellion into view. The final scenes of this movie are directly based off of the events that occurred at Saigo's last stand. The samurai may have died out, but their legend is one that will live on for many, many years to come.